War. War never changes.
While it breaks from the conventional RPG format the Fallout series had become known for, Fallout 4's introduction intrigued me. We were given a glimpse, however momentary, of pre-war America. You are placed into the shoes of either a mother or a father to a newborn child, a lawyer or a veteran, respectively. Regardless of the choice, you, the player, are taken through an explosive set piece. You are then taken deeper into the vault, safety assured by the friendly faces and kind gestures of the Vault Tech Corporation. But I know better. I've played a Fallout game or two. I know the song and dance with these folks. So imagine my surprise as, for once, the experiment works. We are unfrozen, temporarily, for the purpose of witnessing a crime. Its perpetrator, a man decorated with long scars, stares us down, and we are cast back into the icy depths. This method they've chosen to open Fallout 4 really shines here, as the voice acting still clenches my throat slightly.
Come on! There has to be a release! Come on, come on, come on! Oh, God!
I can feel the anguish. My mind is burning with questions. Who was that man? Who was with him? Why did they take my son? Where did they take my son? It's compelling. Sure is a shame the rest of Fallout 4 happens.
Ow!
Make no mistake, I don't actually mind how Fallout 4 decided to go about its narrative. Oh hey, it's a giant floating asterisk above that statement. I'm sure we'll explore that in another video, but for now I want to focus on this man, Kellogg, as a microcosm of how poorly the story was handled, and perhaps how a few small tweaks, found through interrogating the ideas Bethesda had, can potentially fix this character. You can't fix everything, and what's done is done. In all of my time playing Fallout 4, I've come to see Kellogg as a tragedy, a poorly written character in the hands of an incompetent studio. But perhaps in this exercise we can make it a tragedy of a different sort. Plus, I'll finally be able to get something off my chest, mainly how it's clearer than ever that the folks at Bethesda don't know how firearms work. This is a revolver. The casings stay inside the cylinder until you open it. The animation of the reload even shows this. They know. They have to know. So then why can we hear a casing bouncing around on the ground after they're shot? While Kellogg himself, as featured in the story, isn't much, there's a strong foundation here. It's not often a story can let a personalized villain get this close to the player character. And I guess I can't continue until I sum up the interactions between the player and Kellogg. Step 1, he steals your son.
Yoink!
Step 2, you wake up, spend way too long on side quests, then remember the main quest and that your son is missing. Step 3, you hunt him down. Step 4, showdown. I always found it funniest if you equip a fat man before this encounter starts. It really sells his dialogue.
Let's, talk.
Step 5, he's dead. Take a chunk of his brain. Why do you need that? Why is this an inventory item now? Why can't I take chunks of other people's brains? Why do I need this? Step 6, walk through his memories in a section that would be impressive if the Gamebryo engine wasn't basically Italy with the amount of spaghetti holding it together. Step 7, profit. It's simple. Like, written on a postcard simple. Spoilers upcoming for Fallout 4, but if you're this far into the video, then we both know you really don't care. Your son is Sean, 60-something years old now, and leader of the Institute. Hooray. Kellogg notably looks identical to how he did the day he shot your spouse and broke gun physics. The writers, and that term is doing some legwork here, put in a throwaway line about anti-aging technology, and how Sean put a stop to it. I'm being reductive for the sake of comedy, but I really can't stress enough how bad this is, both narratively and, well, narratively. Let me explain. What's my first fix for Kellogg? Make him empathetic to the player, or at the very least, the player character. Kodiak making an empathetic villain, really breaking new ground, aren't we? Hear me out. Why is he working with the Institute? No, really, why? Here's what I feel a good motivator would be. He was sent to kidnap your child for the Institute to use for testing. A rage seems to occupy him as he carries out this task, leading to him dispatching an unarmed civilian who was refusing to cooperate. We come to learn that he's upset at the mission, at what he is being forced to do, because the Institute has his child as well. Imagine, if you will, a small change to the Institute, an organization and villain faction I take many issues with. An underground facility, after a few generations, would have issues with inbreeding, so clearly new genetic material would be needed to keep the pool clean and healthy. Their hostility towards the surface world is crazy, genuinely so, but maybe if they express that hostility in a separate manner, perhaps with nominative determinism. Children kidnapped from the wastes, especially babies, wouldn't keep their names. The fact that Sean is still called Sean when you meet him in the Institute is somewhat convenient. What if he was simply the director? And yes, that's his title, but when you ask him for his name, he seems confused by the concept. He is the director. What does this have to do with Kellogg? If the Institute kidnapped his daughter and then found use in stringing him along with dangerous missions by promising to return her, wouldn't that be a better use of their resources? If he completes the mission, great, new missions, more danger, more goodies. If he dies up in the wastes, cool, one less loose end. The real tragedy? Making him sympathetic in this way, where he understands the pain of a parent with their child taken from them to be fed into the scientific meat grinder? Brutal on its own. But let's say you, the player, finally reach the Institute, breaking in by hijacking the signal or whatever. Your mission is to find Sean, but while you're here, you might remember Kellogg mentioning his kidnapped daughter. You might remember how he had no ill will towards you, that he was simply doing what the Institute asked so that they would give back his daughter. Maybe you can find her. Maybe you can repay an injustice by being the better person. I could see a couple versions of this, but what chills me is the thought of asking her name. Asking the people working around, and they all seem to not know any inhabitants by that name. Digging through files, terminals, or rephrasing your questions once you have the right line of logic, however, maybe you can learn of their nominative deterministic title, what she was intended to be used for. Is she dead? Long gone after so many years of her father working for her freedom? Worse. We'll go back to her fate. For now, I'd like to address Kelloggs' aging issue for absolutely no reason. 60 years is a long time. Bethesda seems to struggle with time frames, among other things. Don't even get me started on how long 200 years is. But for now, let's return to the idea that 60 years is the better part of someone's lifespan. They put that much time between the kidnapping and when you find your son. What I would be interested to see in a rewrite is the idea that Kellogg isn't really the same man that you saw all those years ago. Not that he's been replaced or there's an imposter, but more like a ship of Theseus. In your hunt with dog meat, rather than finding bloody bandages and cigars, perhaps you're finding components. Advanced, almost alien-looking technology that has been chewed up and discarded. Worn by years of wear and tear. Dog meat hot on the scent of something mechanical and putrid. Valentine, should you choose to bring him, perhaps offers some commentary on recognizing the parts. But that they've been modified beyond their intended use. Bent to serve new purposes. He's unsure if it's blood or hydraulic fluid on and around some of these parts, or some unholy mixture of the two. Your search, the hunt, brings you to the same military complex. I actually didn't take issue with this place as a venue, though the since deploying normal-ass 5.56 turrets was a bit underwhelming. I could do a whole video on the armament of the great and fearful Institute. But for now, let's get back to our search. He can still taunt us through the loudspeakers, or even explain his motivation through his own kidnapped child, and that the death of your spouse was an unfortunate bit of collateral. You're unsure how, but you can almost feel him crawling through the wires of the building as he follows you. turning on lights, flashing momentarily on monitors as bits of ASCII, enabling and disabling certain doors as you reach them, forcing you to take the longest path through the most resistance. He's trying to whittle you down, or buy himself time. You're unsure. But with your barrel warm and a battalion of dispatched synth troopers behind you, it's time. Finally, you reach the control room and demand he step out of the shadows and face you, to return Sean to you. From the darkness, glowing red eyes. He steps into the light. The revolver glistens in a familiar menace, his ominous visage revealed by the light of the flickering bulb above. You stand before not a man, but the husk of one. Kellogg in name alone. Every organ that could be upgraded or replaced has been, save for a brain case, similar to a robo-brain. He, Kellogg, is in there, alive in the scientific definition, kept aloft by gadgets and a walking version of life support. New eyes scan you, and you realize that your hunt for a man has led you into the jaws of a beast. He explains that he does not have your son, but for the price of your head, they will finally honor their deal and give his daughter back to him. You have no choice. He has no choice. No cheap words or hollow philosophy will change his determination. You cannot talk him down from an agonizing lifetime of replacing his body so he can earn his little girl's freedom. And only one of you is walking out of this room alive. He knew that bringing you here. You knew that walking in here. The real tragedy? Her name is Mary. Her institute intake ID was 100-40767. Reduced first to a number, then a job. Nominative determinism. Her title? Transmitter Node 1. The Institute is infamous for being difficult to access. You heard tell, or even remember an old friend at MIT telling you about the service elevator to the Scientific Institute in the basement. You attempt to locate it, but find it sealed, collapsed, buried. You're not getting to the Institute this way. Perhaps, then, searching Kellogg's memories, finding out how he got here, tugging on that particular thread, may bear fruit. The normal parts of the memory search can happen here, leading to the discovery of a teleporter of sorts. Some sort of insanely complicated device using radio signals and insane amounts of electricity to send particles and data. Perhaps a change here, something to lend intrigue. We are shown two examples, times where Kellogg and his team arrived in the wasteland via the teleporter, and only Kellogg was pulled back through, faster than the synths or coursers can even recognize the danger therein. Even Kellogg expresses curiosity in how he was able to be withdrawn so fast. Perhaps he chalks it up to the Institute finding him too valuable. Perhaps we can learn the real reason. Through your contacts in the wastes, you find a way to build, power, and operate your own teleporter, hijacking the signal. You arrive as the first uninvited guest inside the Institute. You stand, as many others have, on the teleporter platform, inside the Institute transmitter wing. There's a terminal nearby with some sort of sealed vat atop it. You ignore it and proceed to find Sean. While I could rewrite the entire sequence around that encounter, let's pretend it's fine and that it plays out how it does in the actual game. With your son located, now the player might remember Mary. Might remember to look for her. Through nominative determinism, perhaps you find the file and ask what on earth it means to call someone Transmitter Node 1. The director answers you. Oh, the teleporter? What about it? I'm confused why you would call a little girl Transmitter Node 1. Oh, you see, here at the Institute, only those born within these walls are given names. While I am in charge of running operations, it is the understanding of the scientists and the residents here that I was not fortunate enough to be. If someone is brought from the outside, their name is changed to that which role they fill. So again, why call a little girl Transmitter Node 1? Perhaps you should investigate the terminal there yourself. You are granted access to the teleporter room, and with new context, it becomes clear that she wasn't used to test the teleporter. She wasn't part of the manual labor assembling it either. The Institute used to use that old cargo elevator, prone to breakdowns and outside invasion. But a teleporter? Run with advanced technology and a sufficiently powerful computer? That would be a grand boon for any underground dwelling. But where to get a sufficiently powered computer? Where to get a device powerful enough to make technology like this work? Your eyes drift to the sealed vat, and it dawns on you that it's roughly brain-shaped. The Institute never intended to give Mary back to Kellogg, no matter how many missions he did. No matter how much he replaced his human body with cybernetic components. No matter how much he begged, or pleaded, or raged, or fought. The Institute needed a living computer to run the teleporter. A fate worse than death. This is why Kellogg was spared from the danger when the teleporter could recognize it. And perhaps this is why you were allowed access through the teleporter network. Perhaps through the ears of the dying synths you left behind in that facility. She heard the speech her father gave of collateral, of loss, of not having a choice. She was given a choice, and she let you in. Maybe this is speculation on top of my already speculative rewrite. But here there is a tragedy, and a meaningful choice that the player gets to make in turn. There is no way to free her. She is, for all literal intents, the machine. When and if you decide to destroy the Institute, you must recognize that this will be one of the casualties. This is not a retelling where you can be the hero, but that's not what the Fallout series is about, is it? Bethesda seems to have forgotten that their story takes place in a world built atop the ashes of the one that came before. You are literally in the fallout of the consequences of their choices. Your choices will have consequences, and sometimes the best outcomes get locked out by people who came decades before you. The inhuman treatment of the non-natives of the Institute, I find that far more compelling. Far more compelling than any of the ideals of the Railroad. Far more intriguing than the radiant quests of the Minutemen. Don't even get me started on the Brotherhood of Steel. Kellogg deserved better. Mary did too. As did the player. The Fallout series has the real potential to explore complex and tragic human experiences, often through the lens of the dehumanizing actions those in power take. The series is spent in a setting that involves exploring the wasteland caused by the ultimate decision of madness. Fallout 4 could have explored this too, with Kellogg. He could have served as a warning to the player. He could have been the real threat of Fallout 4, not people pretending to be human, but those who had their humanity and cast it away. Someone who embraced the darkness of losing yourself. A cautionary tale of letting technology consume you. War never changes, but men do, through the roads they walk. Thank you.